Hello, everyone. I'm Irina Kreming, and I'm the founder of INNOCOS, and I am here to announce that in just 2 weeks, we are kicking off our INNOCOS Beauty Innovation Summit in Santa Monica. I hope you join us in Santa Monica. Please do check the links and comments for the registrations if you have not registered yet. And hurry up, we have only not many seats available because it's a limited seats. It's a pandemic time and you can understand it. So we are looking forward to talking to you about the future trends, innovations in beauty, and the most importantly, winning in the new normal. We have amazing speakers lined up covering lots of major topics. We speak about technology innovation, retail disruption, consumer dynamics, and how they're changing, marketing trends, product innovation, just to name a few. And today we are here to announce our opening keynote, Jared Weiner from the Future Hunters, who's already spoke at our summit in Miami, and he was rated as one of the most inspiring speakers of all. So we are super excited to have you back, Jared, to have you back in Santa Monica. Jared is professional futurist. And now in time of the pandemics, it is important as ever to talk about the future. And what we have got the best person for you for that. So we invite to facilitate this short interview and about the future presentations. We invite our member of our community, Irena Katyukharova, who is a marketing executive in beauty and wellness space, and she will lead this live chat today. So Irena.
Hello, I'm so excited to connect with Jared Weiner today to get a brief preview of his presentation at the upcoming INNOCOS Summit on October 18th in Santa Monica, where he will be speaking on building momentum for a rapidly evolving future. Jared is Executive Vice President of the Future Hunters, a leading futurist consulting firm. He's been identifying trends in the global marketplace and analyzing their implications for various business clients. Jared currently serves on the board of directors of the World Future Society. He also sits on American Express, Open's Digital Advisory Board, and the advisory board of the Young Luxury Marketers Council. He has lectured about future trends for many corporate and academic audience, as well as at prominent industry conferences, and we are so lucky to have Jared connect with us today. So Jared, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
It's nice to see you both.
In May 2020, just a few months after the pandemic has started, you spoke at the INNOCOS Virtual Summit about the many unknown variables and related uncertainty in predicting the future. Has that changed? And can we predict the future with more certainty today?
It's a great question. I would like to just start by thanking both of you for the very warm introduction. And I am very much looking forward to participating in a few weeks in Santa Monica. I really enjoyed my participation in Miami a few years ago, and it's very gratifying for me, and I know everyone who participates in the live event space, to actually start getting out there again and speaking about these important topics in front of live audiences. So I'm very much looking forward to the event. Now, to your question, what we talked about in May of 2020, we have seen a lot of that continue through today. So as we revisit those topics about a year and a half later, a lot of what we were talking about at the beginning of the pandemic have only strengthened over the last year and a half. And while we're starting in some ways to come through the pandemic, that's still an unknown, but we're starting to come through the pandemic a little bit. I think we have a much clearer sense now of what the world is starting to look like and will look like as we get through this. So I think that the conversation we're going to have in a few weeks is going to touch on some similar themes to what we talked about last year, but we're going to have some updated information, and we're probably going to be able to make some new projections on top of that.
Do you think the pandemic has taught more leaders to build capabilities and plan for the long term?
Yeah, so one of the things we talk about in our shop is what we call the silver linings of the pandemic, which is not to say that the pandemic hasn't been awful in so many ways, but we all know about that. It's not my interest or my job to come in and just remind people of what's been bad about the last year and a half. I think what's interesting to me are the opportunities that have come out of this. And the silver linings, as we call them, include things like leaders of businesses understanding that there are major problems with short-term thinking, and the idea that they have to be prepared for every possible contingency in the future, which could be something like another pandemic, but something that is hugely disruptive to both consumer markets and to supply chains. And so I think that the focus on short-term thinking and that kind of thinking being exposed as problematic has actually been a good thing to come out of this. I think more leaders are going to be disciplined to practice what we call strategic foresight and think very, very long term. And the other silver lining that I think we've seen in a lot of different sectors, and I'm sure this has been happening as well in the beauty and wellness space, is really the idea of rapid innovation, being forced to conceive of ideas and bring them to market more quickly than we ever could have conceived of. And so what used to take years is now taking months, and what used to take months is now taking weeks. And innovation is becoming less bureaucratic. And to me, that's pretty exciting, because if circumstances out there change dramatically and force us to innovate in real time, I think a lot of companies are now understanding that they can do that as long as the obstacles are taken out of their way. So we call those the silver linings of the pandemic.
Great. And then you spoke about COVID accelerator effect on several emerging trends. Which of these trends are continuing to grow and impact the world we live in?
Yeah, so when this pandemic started, a lot of people were asking us questions about how the world was going to dramatically change and all of these new things that were going to happen as a result of the pandemic. And my message has always been pretty clear that while some new things have emerged over the last year and a half, a lot of what we've seen happening are things that we were able to identify long before the pandemic, but the pandemic has accelerated them. So we call that the COVID accelerator effect. And let's talk about a few ways that that's happening that I think all of us can relate to. I mean, the first has to do with virtual work, or what the term out there is distributed work, partially or fully distributed work. And the idea being that more and more, certainly white collar professionals are going to be, or people who engage in what I'll call intellectual or cognitive labor, are going to be working at least part-time from home, using flexible arrangements, whether it's where they're working from or the hours they're working. And we were talking about this concept for the last 10 plus years. We called it Verflex, and we coined that term over a decade ago. And at the time, only a few companies were really experimenting with this. And now, because of the pandemic, you're going to see massive workforce and workplace shifts that we could sort of predict a long time ago, but now they're coming to fruition. You know, the other one that's very obvious is the idea that as supply chains get disrupted and as human labor gets disrupted, we are going to see more, certainly lower level functions throughout the organization get disintermediated by technology. And we've been talking about that for a very, very long time. It's been happening in the manufacturing sector, but we were saying that a lot of cognitive labor was going to start to get disintermediated by technology, what we call other sourcing. Instead of outsourcing to other humans, work was going to become done by technology that could do it more efficiently and more cheaply. And because of the pandemic, we are seeing that there are certain areas of human labor where people are either less interested in working in those areas anymore, or people don't want to have as many human-to-human touch points, or there are other issues like the wages being paid. So you're going to have more lower-level jobs being outsourced to technology. And so a lot of the things we're seeing today, we were seeing prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic has accelerated it. You know, another one, migration shifts, demographics, the study of how people, certainly in the developed world, are increasingly living in multi-generational households. So now, because people need togetherness and they need support, both emotionally and economically, we see in some cases 3 or 4 generational households. So what does that do when we're consumer marketers? What does that do is we market to people who might be living in the same house as their grandparents or their grandchildren, and sort of their lifestyles are overlapping. So there are all of these interesting things we're looking at, politically, economically, technologically, and demographically, that started to happen before the pandemic, but they're now happening at an accelerated exponential pace right now.
It sounds like there's so much you will be sharing at the event on the 18th.
Yes, it's going to be a very, very robust session. I think Irina, as the master of ceremonies, has graciously given me up to 30 minutes. So I am going to cover a lot of ground in a half an hour, and I'm really looking forward to the discussion.
And I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I really like that you are actually having this helicopter view on the economy, and not just like like we are sometimes, when we're looking at the beauty and how pandemic is changed, we are speaking about lipsticks and all this, beauty and wellness industry details. And I think it's so good to start the event with looking at the big picture and economy, and because it is, it does gives huge influence on the future and the future of beauty wellness. And I'm like feel so lucky we have you speaking again. I'm just like over the moon. That was my dream opening presentation. So thank you so much.
You're the nicest, and I love working with you, and I love your energy and enthusiasm. And I have to say that it's mutual, because I benefit from being in a room with very, very smart people who are running these kinds of businesses, because, and I always like to say this, and this is a good time for me to say this prior to the event in Santa Monica, which is that when I come into a room of executives like this, I am humble enough to admit that I do not know as much about the day-to-day nuances of their business as they do. I'm not there to teach them about their business. My job is to bring that outsider's perspective, as you just so eloquently described it, and to help contextualize for them what is happening technologically, economically, et cetera, that might impact their business in ways they may not be thinking about right now. So they hopefully will learn a lot from me. Hopefully I will shake them up a little bit, and I will learn from them. And during a time that's been precarious for many people, I hope that we leave the session with a little bit of an optimistic message that highlights some of the opportunities that lie ahead. That's my goal.
I love that. Totally.
Thank you, Jared.
Thank you so much, Jared.
Thank you
We don't
both.
want to keep you too long because you are a very busy man. Super appreciate this brief conversations, and I can't wait to see you in Santa Monica.
I will see you in a couple of weeks in sunny California.
Yes. Okay.
In 2 weeks, October 18th.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.